This is the Astrology Show podcast with Jessica Adams.
Thanks, Shane. Here is your astrology and tarot for the week starting the 13th of May. Aries, travelling locally, publishing online, more than you might normally do, moving to a neighbouring place could put you in a big new position from May the 25th, when Jupiter enters Gemini for the first time in about 12 years. If you think back about 12 years, you'll realise, well, it's the same thing, but it's very welcome. If any of these areas of your life, local travel, the regional scene, neighbouring places, the media and the internet are overdue for a sea change, it should now be possible to meet somebody halfway. It may be AI, for example, or an electric car. Siblings and cousins also go into the progress zone along with your neighbours, so start dreaming bigger even now, because by June it's all possible. And in fact, you have until June 2025 on this new cycle. If you have anything in Gemini in your birth chart, then do circle the new moon on June the 6th for a new project, a plan or a course, a new website, podcast, script or book, because you are on an upward trajectory. Taurus, in order to gain the advantage over a financial, charity, business, lifestyle or property question, you should be moving on according to your horoscope as quickly as possible to May the 25th and following. What unfolds near the Gemini new moon in June, near the 6th of that month, is sure to change the balance of credit in your life budget in your favour. And you have seen episodes like this before about 12 years ago. In fact, anything that you planted in your life around 12 years ago, like a mortgage, for example, or a share purchase or a commitment to a charity, will now be coming around again to benefit you. You should certainly have a meeting of financial minds or something even closer with a person who affects your property interests, business, bank account, and so on. So May 25 is when it all begins. This is the week to plan ahead. Gemini. Well, each dramatic and ending and beginning with your money, your house, your shares, your business, your charity, or your apartment since 2008 has encouraged you to spend years digging very deeply for answers about who you are, what you need, and where you should commit yourself. Over this time, the long Pluto transit has reshaped your life budget, your values, what you will and will not sell your soul for, and who or what you consider to be priceless. Well, this week pulls it all into sharp focus for you. There is a new chance to find power and control thanks to the Ceres in Capricorn cycle. So take a deep breath and move forward. You may also need to strategize over a career matter which requires proper timing. And these two issues, the financial and the career, may be connected or separate. Cancer. Well, the arguments for willpower and close self-control help you find answers to financial, business, charity, or property-related questions if you are prepared to look for new solutions to a situation which really landed with a big thud in January and February this year. The time has also come to steer away from what could clearly become disempowering if you let go of the controls. It's on that basis, really, on this sort of cycle. A really big focus about money, assets or debts is something that you can definitely afford this week. This is slow transformation and you do have to narrow your gaze. In fact, the whole cycle takes 20 years, but every year counts, and also every week. Pluto in Aquarius is telling you now that January and February 2025 are about really big decisions. It may be your house or apartment, it may be your shares or business, your salary, and so on. Leo, well, this week you can take the reins over a matter that directly involves your lifestyle, your workload, your health and well-being. Even if one situation feels extremely intense, that should not prevent you from analysing your own needs and motives more deeply according to your horoscope. If at all possible, run your own show and your own life, as with Ceres in Capricorn. This cycle tells you willpower is power. The Temperance card in the tarot for you this week shows quiet command of fitness, food, drink, your state of mind, and your well-being. Money, business, and property-related questions also need patience, expert advice, and the ability to see the long-term picture. Virgo. It's challenging to be a Virgo at the moment because the most personal and heartfelt areas of your life are triggering the biggest changes thanks to Saturn and Neptune in Pisces and Ceres in Capricorn. You appear to be dealing with a partnership or an ex-partner that still challenges you, or a dating game that is too complicated. This is temporary, and these cycles do end. Virgo, you may even have some kind of opponent, rival, or an enemy in the ranks. And once again, it's an intense time, but the trick with these transits is to play the waiting game with what you cannot get out of, or even what you find totally inaccessible. The waiting game does work. And the trick with Neptune, the other planet in this story, is to keep an anchor, a lighthouse, and some lines in the sand with a particular person. Libra, do all you can to balance the scales with your other half or the other side. What you build together, if you are in a dynamic duo or a duet, will stand the test of time and have a special quality that is just as valuable as the best of all good partnerships. Your horoscope suggests that is the way to turn. It may be a treaty or an agreement to differ. That can happen too, even a legal judgment. Now, Mercury is also back to normal in Aries, having been retrograde for far too long. The world of children, your own or other people's, and also intimacy is complicated at the moment. There is no handbook, but there are certainly unwritten laws about what makes you feel powerful and what makes you feel as if you're in control. And the rule, as always, with these cycles is that willpower is power. Scorpio, your career, unpaid work, or academic career depends on the big restart this week and next week. You have what appears to be a really well-worn situation in front of you, dating from March and April. Mercury retrograde has seen to that, so you need to now spin your wheels backwards just for a few more days before you spin them forwards again. Around the 14th of May, the loop finishes. A family or property-related question is the time to remind yourself this week that if you are prepared to run your own world, your own universe, and run yourself, then that is empowerment for you. And it's very, very precious. The alternative is really no alternative at all, Scorpio. And that is to throw your hands up in the air and say, there's nothing to be done. There is everything to be done. And you are famous for having iron will, so you may want to use it this week. Sagittarius, because the situation with your family, your home life, your house, apartment, or your property investment is continually subject to shifting boundaries, this is an area where you could be more flexible. Everyone concerned needs to be given space while you figure out where the line should not be crossed. Neptune can blur the lines or move the goalposts all the time so that your house, your apartment, your garden, your land, your family, your household, your town, even your country can be as confusing as it is confused. This cycle is really well known for that. It does take a bit of sorting out this week, no matter what the issue is, but you can certainly do it by Sunday. Capricorn, your financial, property, charity, or business questions will become easier once you realize that you need to be working hand in hand with Pluto in Aquarius on this cycle. At the moment, you are being offered two pretty stark choices. One of them is to remember that you have what it takes to triumph. And the other alternative is to let anybody else with a different agenda or even the world itself take over. That's just not going to work for you. What does work for you is understanding that everything is now different. You are going through the Pluto in Aquarius cycle, not seen for 248 years in your finance zone. So the need for self-mastery has never been clearer. And this week, your famous Capricorn common sense is worth its weight in gold. Aquarius, all things are possible in your love life with courtship or the bedroom from May the 25th as Jupiter changes signs. And you are here to play the long game until June 2025 with this person or another. Do make the most of a special atmosphere of trust, closeness, and togetherness from late May. And if you are on the rocks with somebody, the Jupiter in Gemini cycle is well known for giving you solutions. If you are single, the best opportunities in 12 years are coming for you in May and June, and the cycle extends to June next year. Jupiter in Gemini is something that I'll talk about in other podcasts, but this week, keep your eyes open for opportunities, as the trick with this transit is to say yes while the going is good. Meanwhile, your finances need special handling, Aquarius. You know that already, but a challenging financial, property, or business-related matter asks you for a strategy. Pisces. Try to use your famous Pisces intuition to project into next year, 2025, and ask yourself where your current mood regarding your house, apartment, your other residence, your town, and even your country would take you. That should be enough to persuade you that a little optimism will go a very long way. Your home life, your household, your family, and your place in the world is presenting new options. In fact, you've not seen them for 12 years. The point at which you deliberately stop playing yesterday's game in terms of property or belonging is the point at which you discover how much new possibility in life you can actually have. It may even be something as simple as house swapping. Whatever it is, Pisces, everything is here for you to use this week, and your intuition will tell you this is about 2025 as well. Tarot cards this week can be decoded at jessicaadams.com. Aries, the Queen of Staves. Taurus, the Ace of Pentacles. Gemini, the King of Pentacles. Cancer, the Queen of Pentacles. Leo, Temperance. Virgo, the Queen of Swords. Libra, Justice. Scorpio, Judgment. Sagittarius, the Chariot. Capricorn, the King of Staves or the King of Wands. Aquarius, well, you have the same card as Aries this week, but it's different for you, the Queen of Staves. And for Pisces, finally, the tarot card over the next 7 days is the Page of Cups. Fated connections this week include Taurus, Gemini, and Cancer connected by finance. Your natal chart shows the end of Mercury retrograde on the 14th of May in the sign of Aries. If you have anything in Aries, then your identity, your name, your profile, your appearance, reputation, brand, and title have been undecided or subject to stop-start for weeks. Ever since April, you've also been dealing with a total eclipse in Aries as well. Now, at last, normal transmission is resumed. Babies born this week will not be satisfied with the old banking system when they are adults or the old tax system. In fact, they may not even be satisfied with cryptocurrency. Babies who appear this week are very special indeed. If it's your birthday, then happy birthday. January and February 2025 will bring a big reshuffle with your job, your unpaid work, or your course, or if you are at home, a big reshuffle with the family. Famous birthdays this week include Morgan Wallen on the 13th of May, George Lucas on the 14th of May, Andy Murray on May the 15th, Mike Oldfield on May the 15th, and Bill Paxton on the 17th of May. So around May 14, depending on where you live in the world, there is the end of a Mercury retrograde cycle to welcome. Let's talk about what happens on that, because I've had so many questions about it. First of all, you still see some astrologers telling you that Mercury retrograde has quite different dates to what we call the shadow period. You do work with a shadow the bit before and the bit after it actually goes retrograde, because it's all part of a loop or a circuit. So if you've been scratching your head and wondering why life has not gone back to normal, that's why. It was never over. But around the 14th, it certainly is. Something about astrology that's really useful is that you can see Mercury retrograde 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, if you like, into the future. So you can organise your calendar around it. So the new year, 2024, began with Mercury retrograde moving backwards through 2 signs, Sagittarius and then Capricorn. And then between 15 and 27 degrees of Aries, recently you experienced, especially if you have Aries factors in your chart, the usual stop-start, go slow, cancellation, and all change. And it can happen more than once. In fact, Mercury retrograde from Tuesday, the 19th of March until Tuesday, the 14th of May, is a textbook example of chaos. We are also waiting to see the outcome of anything that was supposedly settled or decided. Mercury retrograde in Aries is about identity, it's about ID, and of course, during this period, the local elections in Britain, the former Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, forgot his ID to vote with. That was not just a random occurrence according to his astrology chart. And you're going to see the fallout about all these questions regarding ID and identity during a vote for the rest of May. Beyond that, of course, it depends on your own sign as to how you've experienced Mercury retrograde. And this week is about accepting what happened, learning from it, understanding that there are some situations you will never return to, some people perhaps or circumstances that need to be axed from your life, and then you can restart. So for Aries, it was genuinely about your face, maybe your head. Your face and head are ruled by Aries, and maybe your title. For Taurus, it was about religion or tarot or your therapist or self-help. Maybe your priest got the date wrong on your adult baptism. That can happen. For Gemini, it was about your friends and the group. The wheels turn backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards, and now you have decisions to make. For Cancer, Mercury retrograde was about your career, your unpaid work, or your study. And because Mercury rules the paper trail, email, technology, and also verbal agreements, it may be that which you now have to readdress. For Leo, it was about publishing, the World Wide Web, foreigners and foreign countries. And for you, Leo, what you now have to do is see what you can get away with now that there are no more obstacles in the way. For Virgo, it was about finance, property, charity, and business. And this really is quite a circuit for you because you also have the lunar nodes in those two zones of your chart, other people's money and your money. So round and round you go, but you will see a breakthrough this week. For Libra, this was all about the other person, your other half or the other side. And so you can be forgiven for having been particularly given the runaround on a dating website, for example, or dealing with somebody in a partnership with you when there was absolutely no conclusion. That changes now. For Scorpio, it's been about workload and well-being, your health, your daily routine, your service and your duty. And so again, you've been affected by this Mercury retrograde in terms of communication. For Sagittarius, it was about courtship, the bedroom and the next generation, your own and other people's children, teenagers or millennials. So finding your way through all of that will take a few weeks, but the good news for you is that you are now in the best cycle for partnership in 12 years, and it starts in just a few days. For Capricorn, this retrograde cycle of Mercury was about your house, your family, your apartment, your homeland, household, town and country. It is now back to normal. For Aquarius, it's been about siblings, your brothers and sisters, your cousins or your neighbours. And Mercury retrograde there has typically resulted in stop-start communication or cancel plans. For Pisces, this whole cycle was about money, business, your salary. It may have been about property or charity or even just shopping or selling. And again, you're back to normal. What you do when Mercury goes out of the loop is take everything that you learned about who or what is failing and get rid of it or reshape it. You have had weeks to do that, but it's typical of this cycle that the final shadow is the one that usually catches you. So it may have actually been the month of May so far that has been the real test for you. The good news is, no matter what your sign is or what your personal chart looks like, you are left with the North Node in Aries, Chiron in Aries, and now you can see what it's possible to get away with. And that brings me to Chiron. I have spoken about this centaur before in your chart, but it's worth going over Chiron again. You'll often see that he's called the wounded healer. That's actually not accurate. He was wounded and he was associated with herbal medicine, but he didn't have a terrible wound in his leg, get up and start running around with a first aid kit. So Chiron is actually best represented by a music teacher. In fact, our most enduring image of Chiron is a portrait of him doing just that. If you picture Chiron as your most unconventional music teacher, you're getting pretty close. Chiron has no interest in doing what is normal, acceptable, traditional, or the norm. Chiron is all about seeing what it's possible to do if you stretch the boundaries. And so in that area of your life that I've just mentioned, where you've been given the runaround since March, you are now finally in a position to really pull the bow and shoot the arrow. Your aim will be true. Chiron was in fact a hunter. He's usually shown with a bow and arrow. And of course, he galloped far and wide. He was also not supposed to exist. He was half man, half horse. There's something slightly outrageous about Chiron. And sometimes what you get away with on this transit, which you probably could in May or June, is also jaw-dropping. Chiron was discovered in 1977 when the idea of a test tube baby was born. In fact, she was born in 1978, but going all the way back to the 70s, at the time, people thought it was absolutely beyond belief that anybody should attempt that. Now, of course, IVF is widely accepted. The other thing that happened in 1977 when Chiron was discovered and came into the astrology chart was the beginning of punk rock. So there's always something slightly punk about Chiron too. You're not supposed to have a #1 hit if you can only play 3 chords, but the Sex Pistols did. 3 chords might be a bit of an exaggeration, but you're not supposed to get away with what the punks got away with, but they actually changed the music industry. So Chiron is usually quite successful, and frequently what you find yourself being offered when he comes along is years ahead of its time. Jaws on the Floor just about sums it up. Chiron is associated with herbal medicine, but he's one of a whole family of healers in the horoscope. And the Romans would have thought that we were mad to give him the power that many astrologers do. He's really not that significant in healing, no more so than the asteroids Hygeia and also, of course, Aesculapius, also known as Aesculapia. This whole healing family in astrology of asteroids are all related to Jupiter. And once you start tracking them in your horoscope, you can see how they work. But Chiron is very much associated with natural highs, if you like. And I mentioned that he was discovered in 1977. He often does come with drugs. That's very true. So that may be around as well, depending on your personal birth chart. Most of all, though, Chiron is about pulling back the bow and arrow and getting away with what other people say should not happen, could not happen, must not happen, could never happen in a month of Sundays, and yet there you are. It becomes part of normal life. So you're going to see quite a lot of Chiron outcomes during May and also June as Mercury retrograde is over. And the number of people who have been thwarted by that, delayed by it, or just wasted their time attending to the circuit is pretty high. So what happens when Mercury goes back to normal is that everybody suddenly starts getting Chiron. So if you do see a bit of punk rock behaviour around you, that's the explanation. Chiron ran a school for heroes and he is an educator. So typically you'll find that people, organisations or situations around you teach you new things. So at the moment, as we're going into Jupiter in Gemini, which comes along very soon, we're going to see all manner of innovation and invention with the internet itself and also communication as a total field. In fact, what people are saying is AI is really nothing like the future at all, according to astrology. So there's a bit of that in the air as well for you this week. How you play it with Chiron in your horoscope is always interesting for you as an ongoing life experiment. You will have a Chiron sign and a Chiron house. So one area of your life since childhood and your teenage years is where you've done what other people say should not happen, could not happen, must not happen, and yet it does happen and you get away with it. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch up with you next week.